This is Branko Malic with the third podcast in the series on Aristotle's Metaphysics. In the previous podcasts, we talked about what Aristotle calls being as a being, or being insofar it is a being, as a fundamental object, so to speak, of metaphysics in general, or better to say, the thing that provokes human thought to become metaphysical, because metaphysics transcends even being insofar it is a being, in the direction of being as God, and becomes theology. Theology will not be the subject of this podcast. That's so to speak, second part or second half of Aristotle Metaphysics. We'll only note that Aristotle's inquiry into nature of being in absolute or general sense points directly to theology, or to the existence and existence of God, and the way the things are caused and originated by and in God's existence. But the inquiry, let us rehash what we said in the previous podcast. Being qua being is an intelligible reality. This is very important. It is not material reality, and it is not such by its very essence. Namely, matter for Aristotle is a principle of individuum, or principle of things as sensible and perceivable individuals. It cannot be the fundament, or better to say the cause of something all-encompassing and ultimate and primary, what being qua being essentially is. Being qua being, therefore, in Aristotle's way of thinking, and I would venture to say it is not merely Aristotle's thinking, it is a natural way as in which our minds work, is pure form. Now, just to remind the listeners, form in Aristotle does not mean something empty of content, or purely conceptual. It is precisely the contrary. It is, as he pure energia, pure energy. And energy is not a physical term in a modern sense. Originally, energy means actualization, actuality, actualization of possibility. The ultimate being would be the being that which is completely actualized, not in a sense of a process, but because the possibility in Aristotle is always secondary. Actuality is the first, and metaphysics tries to inquire about the firsts in plural. What is first? What is the origin? This origin in Aristotle, it is my contention, although there are debates about this, is God. Debates come to pass because Aristotle's metaphysics seem to point to a certain discrepancy, because for, let's say, one half of a book he talks about subject of metaphysics of as one general all-encompassing being which you discover in every act of thinking about beings in the world. On the other hand, he puts the subject of metaphysics to be one completely unique being, different from everything else, which he calls unmoved mover, or the first cause of movement, and that is God. In Aristotle, while reading Aristotle, the first thing you notice is that he doesn't see any contradiction in it, and the whole antiquity, his interpreters, or at least a great majority of people who talked about Aristotle, wrote about Aristotle, criticized Aristotle, never find any contradiction in this. The reason is, I think, because we nowadays have this completely opposite approach to the world. We approach the world as something outside of us being the subjects, world being the object or system thereof. In Aristotle, as I already mentioned in previous podcast, no such discrepancy exists, and not only in Aristotle, it does not exist in most, or I would venture to say all uh, thinkers of antiquity. That means also church fathers of the church and early Christian founders of early Christian theology, Arab thinkers too, who were extremely important interpreters and mediators of Aristotle down to the Middle Ages, Christian Middle Ages, that is to say, because it is arguable, is there Islamic Middle Ages at all? Uh, this, as we said before, for Aristotle, things speak, things are expressed. There is no idea of us living in the world and then trying to put a label on things subjectively, deciding, well, we'll define this as that thing, we'll define that as this thing. No, 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 no. Definitions, the essences, what things are something we discover, not invent. Modern science invents. It may seem strange to you because we have this notion of contemporary natural sciences as deadly accurate and always staying close to reality as possible, as closer as it gets. But this is far from true, because albeit the modern sciences in devising means for technological progress, which is in fact their main purpose. Modern science is in fact technology, it is not science at all. In a traditional meaning of science as inquiry into nature of beings, uh, we don't have a science, or what we call science is not science at all. And this means that science cannot tell us what is good or what is bad, what is beautiful, and so on. Thinkers all down to Middle Ages would not even consider this possible, or they would consider this failed science. Never mind that science can supposedly bring you to the moon, uh, but all the same, it doesn't give us a contemplation of being, namely the act by which we really understand the world, we start to grasp the causes of things and the purposes of things, which can be the same thing, is an act of what Aristotle calls theoria, what you now call theory, but for him this means something completely different. For us, theory means system of true, of accurate inferences about things. For Aristotle, theoria is contemplation, because Theoretos was a man in religious ceremonies and mysteries, who is observer. Horo means to look, to observe. Theoretos is a guy who stands before the temple and observes, let's say, procession of people carrying the holy relics and such things. That's where Theoria comes from, and it has this very strong emphasis on looking. it's watching. And Aristotle presupposes, and quite rightly I would add, that our mind is capable of immediate disclosure of truth of being. And truth of being is grasping the answer what the given thing is, disclosing its essence. We talked in the previous podcast about this term ousia, that is sometimes translated as substance, which is not accurate at all. Joseph Owens, the Aristotelian interpreter, which I follow to some extent, translates this as entity. So entity is this unique character every being possesses. And if you want to understand what being is, you have to grasp this unique entity of it. And it can be, in a religious sense, understood as person in human beings. Aristotle never much bothered about this aspect because person or personality, in an essential sense of personality, was a Christian thing. They put this forward as a centerpiece, one of the centerpieces of Christian metaphysics, because God is a person. And the most important thing in being person is being unique. And Aristotle's philosophy is very apt to be fused into this kind of thinking, because Aristotle's logic and Aristotle's metaphysics in fact concludes that everything that is unique. And being as being, of which we talk so much, is completely unique and completely and all-encompassing at the same time. There is no contradiction, mainly because it is not material. The reason why we have difficulties to grasp it is because the process of knowledge in Aristotle is such that we at first perceive with things with senses. They're sensible accidents, as they call it, symbebekos. Symbebekos means it's translated as accident. You have substance and accident. Accident is something that is not substantial, that can be or maybe not be the property of substance. For instance, it is not accidental that I am who I am, this man, Malich, but it's completely accidental that I have sunburns because I am working in the hot sun during the day. This is accidental to my substance. This is something you, as a quality, as a accidental qualities, you can say about me. And these accidents are in fact the first thing that our senses perceive, because they are surface of things, they are superficial. But the real truth is far removed from senses, and as we strive and fight and struggle to grasp things, we are more and more leaving the senses. And the things we grasp with a pure mental intuition and cognition and making of inferences are the real things, real causes and so on. And they exist before us and they will exist after us. We are only cursed in a way that we can't grasp them immediately. In Christianity you have this, for instance, Thomas Aquinas, Aristotelian theology of angels, who are conceived as beings without bodies, pure minds and wills. They have only mind and will. And then Thomas Aquinas would say, angel does not need to perceive any individual to know everything that is to know about its species. For instance, he doesn't have to encounter one living man, talk to a living man, see living man, individual man, to know everything that is to know about man, because he is bodiless. He is not impeded by senses. And this is very Aristotelian, because Aristotle, so we will not dwell upon it, but I'll just mention in Aristotle's theology, you have this one great unmoved mover, the being that gives shape to universe, because all universe, which for Aristotle means a world made of movement. Movement, the kinesis or process, is the essence of nature for Aristotle. Everything striving to this one cause. It is a cause in a sense of purpose. It is the one that is desired and one that is loved by all beings. That's how he defines it, and this is for him God. He defines other intermediate movers, which he identifies with spheres of stars. Not stars themselves, but movements of stars, the spheres as they were called at that time. We will not dwell upon it, but this is something just to show you how this way of thinking was appropriated by Christianity, for instance, and very intelligently from early church fathers to high Middle Ages with Thomas Aquinas and such. And this, I said that we moderns don't get this. I was not entirely accurate. I am 100% certain that most of us listening to me now, in fact, intuitively grasps these things, but most of you are probably not very much reflecting upon them. Those who don't get this thing and reflecting on them still don't get them as scientists, or what we now call scientists, elite, academic community, political communities also. And this is the reason why most of us who try to grasp this world suffer a lot, because and we devise bogus metaphysics, bogus religions, and such things, because we cannot reattach ourselves to a, in fact, spiritual tradition, which is among others built precisely by people like Aristotle. Namely, when we argue about something, when we want to come to the grasp of truth, we say that truth must be something non-contradictory. When we try to demolish or deconstruct, as we in independent media are always trying to do, some arguments, for instance, the argument about uh, climate change, so-called, and such things, we always try to grasp the reality. Why is that? Because intuitively we know that lie is in fact unreality. It is that which is not. But for some reason we are fooled into thinking that it is. The problem we have today is when we are fairly healthily and fairly consequently trying to find the truth. When somebody asks us, well, what is this reality upon which the truth is expression of? Us contemporary worldview tell us it's matter. Well, like hell it is. It is not matter. It is anything but. And so, for instance, you have brilliant researchers, journalists, especially if they are journalists, who can get you very close to the truth or disclose you some scandal or disclose you truth about some political misdemeanors and so on. But what is a great problem in them, especially if they are journalists, they say it's a matter of calling a spade a spade. That is, if if somebody tells you, for instance, this cup of coffee is blue and it is in fact white, he is telling you a lie. And all that is needed is to precisely define material world. to precisely define that this aspect is of material world is such and such, that this state of affairs is such and such, but it is not proper. It can get you, this approach can get you some way, somewhere along the way, but not to the end. It will get you, if pursued to its final consequences, it will get you nowhere. Because the first thing that truth is expression of is not material. It is a pure form, pure intelligibility, and pure energy. And now I'm fairly in line with Aristotle. And therefore Aristotle in Gamma book of Metaphysics all of the sudden starts to talk about one logical principle. It is the principle of non-contradiction. There are three names that free this principle of non-contradiction, principle of identity, and principle of the exclusion of the third term. Sometimes these monikers can be interchangeable. Sometimes I won't go into that. It's a little complicated, and to tell you the truth, I'm not always sure why they divide this. In fact, a single principle in the tree. But this is how it goes in Aristotle. You cannot say about one thing that at the same time and in the same sense it is and it is not. Therefore, I cannot say that at this time I am talking and recording this podcast and that I am not talking and not recording this podcast. Now, if there is something obvious in this world, I think this is. But, as Aristotle will show, and as I will try to show of some of our interesting contemporary examples, this is far from true. People are getting entangled by messing this up. Aristotle considers this principle founded not on matter, but on the being, insofar it is a being, on ever-presence of pure intelligible being, which is ever present in everything, and to which we always, albeit mostly unconsciously, recur. He proceeds to say, there are things that you cannot prove because they are obvious. This is very important principle. That which is obvious cannot be proven because it cannot be argued, and it cannot be argued because it is a origin of every argument. And this principle I'm talking about is the origin of every argument, and you can't argue it. But some people do, and some of those people in ancient Greece and Hellas were called sophists. Those were mostly ancient lawyers who and rhetoricians, orators, that was interchangeable in antiquity, who taught young men how to win every argument in the assembly, for instance, at every cost, so that you can use the weaker argument to appear to be telling the truth and to win, for instance, some lawsuit or political dispute and such. And they charged for their teaching, and they ran from town to town. They were traveling merchants of science. And they were great enemies of Plato, and good deal of Platonic dialogues is, in fact, dramatization of Socrates arguing some sophist, proving him wrong. And one of them was Protagoras, a famous sophist who is very famous for his dictum homo mensura, which goes like this. The man is the measure of all things. Those that are, that they are, and those that are not, that they're not. And Aristotle says that the idea that you can at the same time predicate something as existent and non-existent comes from Protagoras' way of thinking, from sophists, which presupposes that in this world there are only sensible material things. This is the reason why you can say this, that things are or are not according to what we decide, or better to say, to what we perceive. And this is the way of thinking, I would argue, of modern science too. With all its sophistication, with all its history, it never moved much from sophism, from false philosophy and a conscious lie. Namely, when we say, so as I said in an example of journalist who said that if you have a cup of coffee and you say that it is of wrong color, you said the lie. And when you say it's a true color, you said the truth. And that the aim is to count all the cups of coffee and tell what color they are of. And this is, in Aristotle, as sophistical as if you would say that wrong color is true color, because nobody will ever count all the cups of coffee in this world, or all the stones, or whatever else, all material things. Truth is not in senses, and he is very explicit about it. Truth is in thinking, and the thinking is a reflection of the way the things are. And the way the things are is that they are at their foundation, at their origin, better to say, and causes intelligible, non-material. And this is being qua being. So this principle of non-contradiction is a logical, is a mental, better to say, expression of the being qua being. There is no, I will emphasize this one more time, there is no contradiction, there is no rift between mental and the real, because we are in Aristotle's, not notion, in his instinct, in the way he thinks, unreflectively, we are submerged in the world. World is not something alien to us. All those things, especially this intelligible realm of things, this deeper, inner, intimate sanctum of things, is something that can be completely obvious to us. It is akin to our thinking, because our mind, because the essence of God, for example, the essence, I'm sorry, not the right term, but the nature, one could say, of God is the mind. This is his overmind, his übermind, supramind. He is more than mind. But mind is one aspect of him, or it in Aristotle, because Aristotle's God is not personal. He haven't grasped the personal aspect yet. It was before Christianity. The mind is the purest expression we can conceive, and we can use our minds to penetrate the inner sanctum of things, and in this inner sanctum, which we translate as entity, ousia, lies what Aristotle calls to TNAI, that which was to be. It is inaccurate translation, because there is this grammatical tense called aorist, excuse me, plusquamperfect, which I think does not exist in English. It denotes something, some action that was finished in the past, but it is emphasis is on finished. So it's not past continuous. It is combination. Very hard to explain past continuous, past finite. I have it in Croatian, so I don't have any problem figuring it out. But it is not existent in English. And this toti enai is what we could, I guess, translate as essence. It's what the being is. But it's not essence in the modern sense when you extract in a way or define the essence. It is the origin of thing, which is in a way always uh, uh, present in it, because in Aristotle's universe, no effect is detached from its cause. Today we think about causation as playing a billiard or pool or snooker, when you shoot the ball and it hits other ball and this hits other ball, and there's only mechanical movement of things in collision. Aristotle causation, this way of causation, is the last one, the least important. Causation, for instance, in him is when that from which thing uh, proceeds, like in procession, it in a way still remains in it. The matter is different. Matter you divide. For instance, my father is my cause, but we are two completely separate beings. But in a formal sense, in a personal sense, for instance, we are not so different, because every male listener of this podcast, if he is over 25 or 30, should know that you can never escape the similarity to your father. And this genetic explanation, biological, is one way, a reductionist way to explain it, but you can explain it simply as people always explain it, that a like begets a like, and that you cannot energy is continuous in Aristotle. So there is no rift, there is no when thing is energized, when it is a purer form, where there is less matter and pure form in it, it is more continuous, and the things it produces are continuous with it, and the whole world is a continuum, synechés, as Aristotle calls it, without break, without interruptions. And the thinking is synechés. It is continuous, something continuous, continuous activity, and pure thinking is not movement at all, because it is so perfect movement that there is no before and after. It's very interesting. Uh, and this principle that everything is sensual means that everything is material, and Aristotle proves that it is not so, that what results from it is that there is no first thing, second thing, third things in a hierarchical way. And everything becomes one in a sense that everything is indistinguishable. Because, for instance, things became what he calls phenomena. Phenomena. And phenomena implies, if things are only phenomena, it implies that they are existent only in a relation to subject, conscious subject, somebody perceiving them. And uh, then the truth becomes a relative. And this is what Aristotle calls prosti category, in relation to something. Relativity for Aristotle, relation, is the weakest of all categories, because it is not self-sufficient. It always, every relation presupposes that there must be at least two things. And what he seeks is something that is unconditional, and this is this entity or substance, usia. The things, the thing which is unique, there is no unique relations. So this way of thinking, sophistical way of thinking, is absolutely relativistic. And we have it, something like this today with modern science, especially with its religion called posthumanism. And what happens is this. They say there is no intelligible reality, there is nothing first, and everything is, in some sense, related to subject, everything is phenomena. Well, at some point, they start to feel need for certainty, to find something certain, to find some firm foundation. And as they deny the existence of intelligibility, they try to make material firm, matter and senses, to make them firm. And so they are dreaming, posthumanists are dreaming of changing the world in the sense that they will imbibe it with nano robots or something, some sci-fi crap that will make it materially intelligible. And they are dreaming of stimulating our senses so our senses will show us only beautiful things. This is of course impossible. This is unbelievable. This is delusional, or being metaphysically delusional, diabolically delusional. And it flies in the face of reality. And when you have this extreme of science, of scientific, of metaphysics, of scientific religion, then you start to see how Aristotle, for instance, was right. And then you start to see that the foundation of our knowledge of the world and of our certainty is not matter. It is something else. It is spirit, in fact. This is so-called via negativa way, when you see from contradictions of your opponent, you see truth of what you claim. Because they, for instance, this posthumanist, if anybody will bring you to understand that material matter is not the foundation of universe, they show you this. Because by relying on that assumption, they fly into madness. They are practically falling in a free fall, thinking they are ascending with a hyper speed, as Ray Kurzweil thinks that we are exponentially explored, that we are running towards this singularity. He thinks that we are accelerating uphill, but we are not accelerating uphill. We are accelerating downhill by the speed of free fall, almost like World Trading Center towers. A little slower maybe, but will accelerate more, no doubt, in following years. Anyway, so this being as being is a reality underlying not only things, but our thinking of things. And it is expressed in this very simple principle of non-contradiction. But I dare you, found your discussion on non-contradiction every time. You'll be somebody I and everybody else should bow to. It's extremely difficult because we don't always apply this principle. We fail to apply it in most of our inquiries, discussions, criticisms. Philosophy is here, especially metaphysics is here to teach us to understand it and then to methodically exercise the application of it. And now we come again to what the metaphysics is. You probably heard, at least some of you, about this new age ideas of metaphysics. You have, I think David Icke even uses the word sometimes. That has nothing to do with metaphysics. Metaphysics is thinking. There are no energies, truth, vibrations, such things. Those are material qualifications. Those are quantifiers. Those are delusions. Like quantum physics will bring us to metaphysics. Quantum physics will bring you nowhere. It cannot bring you. Mechanics cannot bring you to metaphysics. Thinking can bring you to metaphysics. Thinking of the world as it is, as intelligible. You cannot, those people who take that quantum mechanics will, just to say in passing, bring them to metaphysics. No, it will bring them to subphysics, because what this does for a worldview is making a worldview of the universe which is not exactly material, but this matter it is material, but at the subatomic level, this matter starts to dissolve. It is not dissolving in spirit. It is dissolving in a dead carcass of it is dissolving in mud, into nothingness. That's the opposite way. The way of metaphysics is up, not down, looking above, not below, because Aristotle said metaphysics philosophy, Sophia, the wisdom was born when men started to look up and to wonder. Thaumazein is a Greek word, to have a sense of wonder uh, about the starry skies, about the stars, about the world, because the sight of the stars is something that, curiously enough, always turns us to look inside ourselves too. Because there is some, we'll not go deep into it here, but there is obviously some congeniality between us humans and things that are in the skies above us. And there is some relation or sympathy or sympatheia, as Greeks call it, between all things. And it is sometimes best disclosed on these most wondrous sights of all, as the starry skies. But as Aristotle said then, when they figured out that this is fascinating, people start to look around themselves in the smallest things and found out that truth is as well present here among us. So, metaphysics. We in these three podcasts we laid out, let's say, one half of Aristotle metaphysics. The other half, in the sense of meaning and content, is Aristotle's theology. I won't go into it now. I think I sufficiently pointed out the relation of it and this what we call ontology, this science of being insofar it is a being. And now this is more or less what metaphysics is. There was metaphysics before Aristotle and before philosophy, and there is after, and there will be after us. But Aristotle is one of those people who gave us very accurate way to grasp what the metaphysics really is about. And I hope I showed, although there was a lot of abstract and I think boring passages. This what I'm saying, that it is not something very far from our everyday experience. Moreover, we are thinking metaphysically, most of us, but we don't know that. The function is philosophy is, among other things, to make us aware of this. So I hope that these free podcasts could be used by you, my listeners, to really, as an introduction, to really reflect about these things and to see that what Aristotle is speaking and what I'm speaking is not something you don't know. It's something you just maybe haven't said to yourself before. It is not something that is mediated to you by me or by this great philosopher, but it is something you have the grasp yourself if you want to make an effort and bring it about in your life to reflect upon these things. And believe me, it will make you easier, especially those who follow Kali Tribune or 21 Wire, who are into this contemporary mess we are living with. Believe me that this kind of thinking can make you disciplined, make you very well equipped to figure these things out with a very cool head. Much better than classical journalism. Anyway, that would be the finish of our third and last podcast on Aristotle's metaphysics, science sought for. I think we found something of that which is sought for. Thank you for your attention. This was Branko Malic of Kali Tribune.